Welcome to the Economy Magazine at I-24 News, where we take a look at the world markets and the global economy. I'm Natalie Ehrlich. Coming up today, the Hakramim Winery, rich in history and in flavor. The Israeli winery produces 2 million bottles annually. We speak with the manager on the unique tapestry that is Israeli wine and how business has only grown, not fallen, despite calls for BDS. And the Chinese slowdown putting world markets in suspense as analysts digest just how the tumult could affect their own economies. Ken Herzog of BDO joins us in studio to provide his own analysis of what changes the Israeli economy could see in the coming months. But first, we'll start with the financial headlines. China markets in the red Monday, the Shanghai plunging well over 5%. The Shenzhen plummeted 6.3%, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng fell 2.3%. In Japan, the Nikkei slipped 0.39%. Experts continue to say that the crisis in Asia's largest economy will have broader economic implications for the entire region. Despite the turmoil in Asia, the European equities rose higher on Monday morning trading. By the afternoon, London's FTSE advanced 0.38%, Germany's DAX climbed over 1%, and France's CAC added 1% as well. U.S. Dow futures tried to shake off those China news and open in positive territory. Well, after months of bitter infighting, the majority secessionist lawmakers in Catalonia voted in a new leader Sunday. Carles Puigdemont was elected regional president, providing fresh fuel to Catalonia's pro-independence faction after a stalemate in choosing a new local government leader. The previous president, Artur Mas, had become the subject of a corruption scandal linked to his far-left CUP party. Well, Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy vowed to fight for Spain's unity.
It is now the last stretch to complete the process towards independence started some years ago with massive demonstrations and a democratic response by the people of the country. Surely it is the most complex and uncertain of all the stretches we have walked successfully so far. We will reach the end.
British Prime Minister David Cameron now aims to reach a deal on UK membership in the European Union next month. Once a deal is reached, a national vote will be called to decide the fate of Britain's whether it will stay or leave the Eurozone. Now, the British government wants the EU to cut bureaucracy and trade barriers, also seeking to differentiate between rules for countries inside and outside the Euro area, and also to limit benefits for immigrants. Cameron has already pledged the vote on a Brexit by the end of 2017.
In terms of the issue of welfare benefits, Britain has a different welfare system to many other European countries. Ours is not contributory, so people have instant access to it. And so, yes, my proposal that people should have to wait for 4 years before getting access to those benefits, that remains on the table. As I've said, I'm open to listening to alternative solutions. As we agreed at the European Council, we should be looking for solutions rather than compromises. And I'm sure that a lot of hard work is going to be done now between now and the February Council to reach agreement. But I'm confident we can reach agreement.
Now, after a high-profile lawsuit from the DOJ against Volkswagen over its emissions scandal, the German car maker's CEO offered an apology. During his first official visit to the United States since the scandal first came to the light in September, Matthias Müller said that he understood his company deeply disappointed customers, government bodies, and the general public, adding that the vote was, quote, fully committed to making things right. Well, Mueller also indicated that Volkswagen was planning to invest an additional $900 million in the U.S. to build a new mid-size SUV.
Volkswagen has invested over $1 billion in Chattanooga. We are proud of our employees and the factories there. And Volkswagen firmly stands by the planned $900 million investment in the new mid-size SUV. This car will create another 2,000 new jobs here in the U.S.
Staying in the U.S., a multi-state Powerball lottery drew a record $1.3 billion jackpot. Millions of Americans eagerly checked their tickets Saturday night for the magic 6-number combination. The grand prize, played in 44 states, Washington, and 2 U.S. territories, has grown steadily in recent weeks after repeated drawings produced no big winner. Well, California, the nation's most populous state, normally sees Powerball sales of $1 million a day. But on Saturday morning, sales were $2.8 million an hour. And now for a snapshot on one sector of the Israeli economy, it's wines. And Eli Shore, manager at HaKormim Winery, joins us here on the studio. Well, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, your family has a long history producing wines. Tell us about that.
Yeah, actually, my family started to produce wine in Jerusalem in the year 1848 in the old city of Jerusalem. Then the winery started to grow, and in 1929 we go out the walls from the old city to the new city, and we start to produce wine since then in the new city. Now we are in Ma'ale Adumim, it's near Jerusalem, near the city that I'm seventh generation there.
Fascinating. So you started in the old city of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Well, tell us, what is unique about Israeli wines?
I think first of all we have a different taste in the grapes because the climate in Israel, it's very difficult, and the grapes suffered in the vineyards, and after that the grapes give very good and aromatic wine.
Despite the difficult climate?
Because maybe the difficult climate.
You can really feel all the challenges of growing that wine, or what's unique about it?
It's between the heat in the day and the very cold nights. We don't have enough water. We have a very hard soil. I think that everything make, in the end, very good grapes.
Interesting. Well, the boycott divestment movement has sought quite hard to hurt the Israeli economy and industry, and your winery started out in the Muslim quarter, actually, right, in the eastern part of Jerusalem. So how has this movement affected your business?
In the beginning, we feel that we almost stopped to sell to Europe. But after 1 month, we see that our loyal customers still buy our wines, and we see our wines on the shelves in the supermarkets in Europe. We feel a little bit different, maybe less interesting in the German market, but I think that when I look now, I think that we have some increase in selling for export, more than before.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about this wine that we have here at the table. Here, if some of our viewers can see, it looks a bit brown, which is unique to me. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that wine is unique to Israel. It's mentioned in the Talmud. And that wine made from grapes that grows around Jerusalem with silan. Silan, it's dates honey that give us some sweetness, and with brandy that also with distillery in our winery. And we go with that recipe from my grandfather around 150 years in Jerusalem.
Wow, well, there's a lot of history for that. Well, thank you very much for being with us. And before you go, I'd like to take a sip of your wine. L'chaim.
L'chaim.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I can taste the dates in this. Very sweet. Thank you very much for being with us.
You're welcome.
Moving on now, inner conflict in southeastern Turkey exposes traditional rifts between the Turkish authorities and the Kurds. Here's more from Daniel Roth.
Conflict between Turkish forces and the Kurdish Workers' Party, known as the PKK, has taken an uptick in the south of the country since December, and in the wake of elections in which the pro-Kurdish People's Democratic Party reached the 10% threshold to hold mandates in parliament. Nearly 450 have been killed in the last month, and the violence has taken a toll on human life and livelihood as well, having a deep impact on the local economy.
The conflict have affected 95% of our business. We couldn't open our shop for 32 days because of the curfew, and because of this, our losses are very big. We hear gunshots, we have gotten used to it.
The unemployment rate in the Kurdish Diyarbakir region is now at 30%, well above the 10% national number. And unions are reporting losses on exports to Iraq in the amount of $450 million since the beginning of last month. On the tourism front, numbers are hitting lows as well. Potential visitors are canceling flights, and hotel occupancy has dropped from around 80% to around 30%.
At the moment, all the hotels are almost empty. They have trouble finding clients. Aircrafts are empty. You can find a seat anytime. It's affecting shopkeepers and everybody.
The local economy has seen positive numbers over the last 3 years after peace talks took place in 2013. But last summer, after a suicide bombing killed 33 pro-Kurd and left-wing activists in the southeast, the respite came undone.
Another dismal trading day for Chinese markets, the Shanghai plummeting more than 5%. Now, for further insight on this situation, Hen Herzog of BDO joins us here on set. Thank you very much for being with us.
Hello.
Well, look, how have the Chinese markets influenced Israeli markets?
Well, you know, for a long time we've been warned that the Chinese slowdown may be a threat to the global economy. And some of those experts that now warn that it's a threat just a few years ago warned us that the Chinese economy is growing too fast and it's a threat to the global economy because they will take out over the world. So I say, let's calm down and put things into perspective. In terms of the Israeli economy, Chinese export to China is only 5% of the total export. So there is no major concern. I would be more concerned about European slowdown than Chinese slowdown because that's our major export market.
Interesting. Well, wouldn't Israel benefit from cheaper imports from China?
Well, yes. Part of the situation is that as the Chinese economy cools down, demand goes down. We see commodity prices go down, energy prices go down, grain prices go down.
Isn't that good for us?
Yes, it is. Israel is an importer of those commodities. So if coal prices go down, oil prices go down, grain prices go down, we'll see cheaper food, cheaper energy. So yes, it's definitely a benefit to the Israeli consumer.
It's almost like the rich guy on the block who no longer can afford to pay a ridiculous sum for his house, and so that brings the property prices down and helps everyone else who lives on that block.
Yes, and part of the increase in the commodity prices was because of the increased demand from China. So basically, we're going back to rational prices globally.
All right. Well, what about the Chinese investment in the high-tech sector in Israel? Because that is a huge source of financial capital for Israelis here in the corporate world. Is this slowdown in China going to impair that or limit it?
Yes. In recent years, we've seen a lot of Chinese companies come and invest in Israel, not only in the high-tech sector. We've seen Chinese coming to the food industries, to Tnuva, to the financial sector, to the energy sector. And I think the investment of Chinese companies in Israel were part of their preparation for an era of local slowdown because they wanted to diversify, they wanted to have other sources of growth rather than the local demand and supply. So in a sense, I think that it doesn't contradict and even supplements because now Chinese are even more looking for markets out elsewhere, and Israel is foreseen as a bridge to Europe and to the U.S.
Interesting. And also they are looking to advance past their manufacturing base. Some guests we've had here before mentioned that they're looking to turn more toward innovation, an innovation-based economy rather than manufacturing economy. And we have seen some of their data come in negative here, which is also stimulating this free fall in the markets. But perhaps if they move in that direction, could they really be the big economic innovator out there?
Well, they are. China, traditionally, Chinese force wasn't in innovation. There was in their industrial power, in their efficiency. And yes, they are coming to Israel partially to benefit from our innovation proficiency, to acquire know-how, and to improve their production facilities both locally and elsewhere.
Right, and they are looking to expand their innovation economy, especially when it comes to aging. That is something that we've spoken here as well. That's certainly a sector that's important to them with their aging population, and they have so many people there.
Yes, they are looking, and Israel does provide many benefits in terms of our food industry, in terms of our medical industry, in terms of our high-tech industry. Exactly.
All right. Well, the Israeli Stock Exchange still has taken a series of hits by this poor data coming out of China. How do you explain that?
Well, you know, in the short term, Israeli Stock Exchange and any stock exchange doesn't like uncertainty. It doesn't like volatility. So when you see shocks globally, it will affect the local market. But if you look from an economic point of view, I don't think there should be any major influence of the Chinese slowdown or even a crisis on the local market. We do have our own problems in the Israeli economy, and they may be reflected in the stock market. We have our own slowdown in the economy. We have a reduction of investment, but we can't blame the Chinese for that trouble. That's our own.
Interesting. Well, also something that is interesting as well is a lot of analysts have pointed to the fact that we can't trust the numbers coming out of China, that in fact it's much worse than they're letting on.
Well, yes, that's part of the problem. If you look at the Chinese economy, it's not a free market economy. If you look at the Chinese stock exchange, it's not a free stock exchange. There are restrictions on the flow of equity in that market. And yes, we could never really trust the numbers, but I don't think the numbers is what counts here. There is no doubt the Chinese economy was growing very fast, and there is no doubt that it's slowing down now. So the number is not the issue, it's the trend. And I think the trend is undisputed.
All right, well, thank you very much, Hen Hartzog of BDO, for joining us in studio.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes our show today. Do stay tuned here every day for all your global economic coverage here from the Jaffa Port in Tel Aviv. I'm Natalie Ehrlich. Thank you very much for watching.